Greetings, friends! Welcome back to the Film Alchemist podcast, the show where we look at movies we love, break them apart, to find out what gives them their magic. I'm your host, Josh Griffey, joined as always by Linda. No, just kidding. It's my co-host,
Alex Dandino. My name's not Linda.
It's a great reference to what we're about to talk about after some business. All right, guys, this month has been a sojourn into the abyss of horror. We thank you guys so much for diving in and doing 31 pods in 31 days with us. It's been a lot. You guys have been amazing. We'd like to ask you one more favor. Please take a second right now. Leave us a rating and review wherever you find the show, especially if that happens to be Apple Podcast app. It helps us out enormously. For those of you who have done it, we see you. Thank you. Also, please retweet, share, make a story on Instagram, whatever, with some links to the episodes that we've been sharing on our socials, on your socials. Bring your friends along to the parties, guys. That's another easy way to help us out. You can reach out to us on social media anytime. We love to hear from you with your suggestions, movies to cover, new, old, double features, guest hosts, month theme, anything. You can also email the show, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com. As you guys know, every December we stuff your stockings. All listener selections. We get as many as we can. We've never been able to get them all done yet. I bet this year will be the same. So what we do is you guys send us suggestions. We rank them in order and do as many as we can. So get in now. We're starting to get some really cool ones. So come legit. Let's do this. As
you're gonna tack us up for another 31 days of this is what's gonna happen.
I don't know that my heart would survive, but maybe it would. I don't know. We're just gonna do a pod every day for the rest of our lives. It's like a Twilight Zone episode now. All right, guys. As you know, next month, November, the Thanksgiving month, the pod is bringing the beef. We're doing all beefcake manly movies. So be prepared for that next month.
Psyched.
I think that's it. That's all the business, right? Oh, follow our YouTube channel, Nerd Alchemist. We have some fun new stuff going up. We're going to start having some short films that I've been working on with a couple amigos of mine, a couple other comedic things coming up, maybe some other fun stuff. So, Nerd Alchemist on YouTube. All right, man, that's enough business. Tonight we are here to return to the cabin, this time with more money, more crew,
more fun.
A lot more fun. Alex,
Shocking
tonight we're discussing Evil Dead
2. Dead by Dawn.
Evil Dead 2, Dead by Dawn. This has been one of those things that me and my horror movie buddies have debated ad nauseum. Evil Dead versus Evil Dead 2. I've always said I was more of an Evil Dead guy because it actually plays as a horror film. Mm-hmm. I think maybe today that argument is straw man nonsense. I quite enjoyed Evil Dead 2, and everyone who listens to the show knows that I'm not necessarily the biggest fan of throwing in, sacks full of yucks in the middle of my horror films. I like to keep it pretty somber and, stay in the mode.
Sure.
But this movie, there's something just fucking magical about it, man. What are your opening thoughts on Evil Dead 2?
I agree. I love the Evil Dead series in general. I think these movies are really entertaining beyond anything else. But I do see them like the first one. Is more of a straight horror film. This one is like Marx Brothers directed a horror movie, which you're gonna throw in some yucks here and there.
We kind of went from punk rock to Weird Al.
Yeah, and I'm fine with that, to be honest with you. And I think that's sort of, it's funny, because even today, like you posted this actually today, it was this great meme that came out, which was, it was like Newman, or it was not Newman, but in the movie it's Nedry and the fucking Dodson guy. But it's like, nobody cares. Like, you can like what you like. That's the best part about this movie, is you can kind of pick out the pieces you like the most.
Right.
And you don't necessarily have to like the whole movie, but there are parts that's like, me personally, there are parts of this movie that I fucking die laughing. We'll talk about one of my, it has, and I said this yesterday, has one of my all-time favorite gags in a movie ever. Like, it is absolutely wonderful. But ultimately, for me, Evil Dead 2 is not as good as The Evil Dead for me personally.
Yeah.
But it still is. It's still sort of just this thing on its own that works so well on its own that there's kind of like no comparison for me personally.
Yeah, well, it's a strange tonal shift. Essentially, he goes back, and this is one of the wild things. He goes back and he says, I'd like to remake that movie, but it's kind of a Force Awakens remake, right? Where it is almost beat for beat a recreation of the film we watched.
Yeah.
But it's also an advancement, because the movie starts with this wild Ash is being flown through the trees, and this Wonderland-like down the rabbit hole moment, right? Smashed in. Right. Ash awakens, now he's demonic. There's that amazing scene where he's shifting, as the sun's coming up. He sees the bridge, which now looks more cartoonishly gnarled. And the sun, or the moon is rising behind him. The sun, it's just this... The style is so amped up and heightened, because we talked about, I feel like a lot of what I thought Evil Dead was is actually in this movie. It's Evil Dead 2. The first one is a lot more stiff than you remember, right? It's a lot of set on sticks, right? You're just kind of like, there's wild shit happening, but the camera itself's kind of still. This one is Raimi unhinged, right?
Totally.
And I think the weird thing is that what we didn't realize is that he was going to be doing a Buster Keaton movie.
Big time.
But the difference between this and even something like Army of Darkness is I don't think the horror subsides that much.
No,
I think there's still really excellent moments of actual horror. And so to me, that's where, because that's the thing. If I'm watching any horror movie, right, I'm with you. I don't think the argument that a horror movie, it's not scary to me, it's just one of those sack of shit things to say, right? There are movies that are fucking horrifying that aren't horror movies, right? And not all horror movies have to make you...
many times.
Yeah, no, you don't have to jump out of your fucking undies every time, a monster's coming. It should make you sit and feel dread and, oh man, what am I doing? It's one of those... I like horror movies that just let me ponder, the dark depths, and Evil Dead accomplishes that. Just in a little bit zanier way, right?
Look, there are aspects of this movie that are going to be slapsticky, but and I think this is the thing that Sam Raimi knows better than anyone, particularly because this movie was made and his legacy in its own right, is that everybody's going to find something horrifying about what's happening. It doesn't matter necessarily to scare the shit out of you. The point is that something about this is unsettling. And I think that's the thing I like the most about Evil Dead 2 is that it's unsettling. It's not that it's just balls out scary. It's that you're just like, why wouldn't you just leave? Like, the whole time you're like, Ash, find some way to get the fuck out of here. Who cares? Oh my God, jump off the ravine. What is wrong with you? And like the whole time you're just like, but I'm so frivolous. I'm so like... frivolously at the same time engrossly entertained by what's going on. Like, everything about this movie beat by beat works for me. And there's aspects of this movie that even watching it this time I was like, I should be turning this off right now. There's no possible way I should be enjoying watching Ash smash dinnerware over his head. I'm like, this is so corny, but like, it just works on you, man. But that's like the best part about the movie. That's like the best part about the movie.
Yeah, this one starts off right.
It's just part.
Well, it's so different because again, the opening is a retelling, and it shows the first scene this time instead of the first Evil Dead plays very much like an actual horror film, right? Here are real people, if not two-dimensional kind of stereotypes of people. They're coming up to a cabin, right? This one starts off, we have this amazing shot flying out of a tunnel. The bridge looks goofier. I believe what they say is just, I hope this guy doesn't come back. Like, that's just the thing they add. I was like, what the fuck? I'm like, they didn't even rent this place? They're just like, let's pull over and fuck. And that's how it's just like, it's fucking strange. Like, in this one, something I always forget is, the Necronomicon and the knife and the tape player are just like out.
They're just there.
They're just like out in the room, like decor. Out. So this movie sets up at the start. It's almost giving us, the audience, this parallel multiverse thing, right? Yeah. That perhaps Ash, when he gets caught at the start of that movie and at the end of the last one, maybe now this is some other shit we're getting into, right? Because we see the moment of transition, right? So they run us back through there's a new Linda, right? The other people aren't there. So we're running through and changing integral elements of the first one. And then once he takes off and flies through the trees, right? Mm-hmm. It's almost telling us that there's something more going on. So it's a really clever way to relaunch into, because this is the thing. I think what you end with the three of these especially, right, is by part 3, it just feels like Sam Raimi doesn't want to make a horror movie anymore. Yeah. But he loves horror imagery, you know? And this is kind of that perfect in-between ground.
Yeah, I think when you get to Army of Darkness, you're seeing someone who's just sort of flexing a muscle at that point, but making a completely different movie. Like, he's making a movie that he knows the origins of, but it's a fucking action-adventure movie. Like, there's nothing about it that feels... There's horror elements stuffed into this action-adventure movie. For me, like, I think the thing that I loved was... Because, honestly, at the beginning of this movie, I sat there and I was like, is this the same Ash? Or is this, like, a different universe Ash? Because, honestly, like, he's describing the cabin to Lou's like, it's pretty remote. And I'm like, are you taking this girl to this cabin that you, like, totally had to murder somebody in before? Like,
that he didn't rent, apparently, and is worried an archaeologist might... Well, this one, too, because he shows up and he's all of this false bravado, right? Where he's like, you want some champagne? I'm a man, and you're a woman. And you're like, who is this fucking guy, right? Because in the first one, he was this terrified man who became the final girl, essentially. Mm-hmm. And, you know, like, was reluctant. When first asked into action with the axe, he doesn't do it, right? In this one, he starts off in a place much more full of bravado. And he's been infested himself by the evil dead, as it were. Right. There's a lot of fun stuff, but it's just... that opening scene to me is really fun because it's almost just Raimi flexing, right? So the scene when he cuts Linda's head off is just shot so much more fun, right? The head's rolling around, they get buried, you know, cramming the cross, the setup, establishing shot of the cabin behind that. It's just really beautiful work. And then as we continue on, the Linda makeup in this is the makeup level in this movie has ascended enormously.
Yeah, so that's the fucking budget right there.
So that's what I mean, though, right? Like, there's still the part where he sees Linda, he's fighting Linda, right? She starts biting his hand. He puts her neck in a vice. And this is kind of the microcosm of the movie to me. Linda's sitting there in the vice, and he goes for the chainsaw. There's like a chalk outline of where a chainsaw should be.
Which, again, is like super slapsticky, which is great.
Well, it also plays on, is this some kind of fucking alternate dimension thing, right? Because he's already would have had it or should. Anyways, doesn't matter. Because he knew it was there and then it wasn't. So that's like a trippy multiverse theory thing. So her body runs in wielding the chainsaw. That's pretty fucking scary. Even when it starts chainsawing itself, you're like, all right, a lot of blood, I get it. You start losing interest pretty fast. You're like, wow, this is a gnarly visual.
Right.
All right, like, I had my laugh. But then we cut back to the vice and Linda goes human head again. In that moment, right, again, it's a recreated beat that they've already shown us they do a couple times. But those little moments, right, that bring us back into... Holy fucking shit, man. Imagine your wife saying loving nothings to you with her head in a fucking vice and a bloody stump.
It's horrifying. Like, and I think that's the tightrope walk Raimi does through this entire movie. Like, how often can you interject true, like unsettling terror into a situation? Well, okay, you're gonna have like this weird, like you're gonna have this woman's disembodied head bitching at him the whole time, telling him you're gonna eat your soul and shit. Then her body's gonna come in. Like, there's a lot of like really kind of fun, entertaining gore shit that's happening, and then you cut to that. And that, I think, is the really fascinating thing about Evil Dead 2, is you have all these absolutely bonkers, Buster Keaton moments punctuated specifically by what I would consider really unsettling horror like that.
Sure.
That's the kind of thing that brings you back to reality, and you're like, oh wait, this is supposed to be kind of a horror movie in a way that's like I said before, just unsettling in a lot.
Yeah, well, this is the thing is you already made Evil Dead, right? It's already one of these, it's already probably becoming a cult classic at this time even. So you already have here is the scary demons in the wood, this, that, and the other. So to redo that movie, I don't know what the point is. What I think is kind of fun is that this one, the cartoonishness, I think, is what we settle on because you're like, look how funny and goofy this is. Like you said, Ash smashing his face with the plates, dancing with the Pixar lamp from hell. Those are funny, just Bruce Campbell moments. He finds what he's really good at in this movie, right? Which is he looks like he could be one of these action everymen like Bruce Willis style, but he just has this goofy lair, right? He's a man who knows he's stuck in a cartoon. And Bruce Campbell becomes perfect for that in this series. But what I think it does, the more you make it goofy, if you bring it back, though, to those awesome little touchstones, is it actually gives you this deepening psychological trauma that who knows what this guy's saying. So, right, like when someone gets pulled into the basement and next thing you know, it's just an absolute fucking geyser of blood, right? Or the first time we see that, he shoots his own hand. Yeah. In one hand, blood is just this geyser of blood. This is just a guy coping with the fact that he's just killed. Well, one person, if you believe this is the first time he's been there, or, 5 people, something like that. So, a man who was just, through insanity, driven to chainsaw his own hand off. So I think that's the thing that works on a stealth level for Evil Dead, is that while it is playing more comedic, the underlying nature of what is happening, right? The fact that this hole in reality may have been opened by this weird couple. They're downstairs. His daughter shows up. And once they get there, then we essentially go back and redo the major moments of Evil Dead 1. But that scene where Ash is just by himself in the house becomes this really just spectacular run through a funhouse mirror with a man who's absolutely at his wit's end. Yeah. Right? You don't even feel like he's fighting for survival, but to escape. Because I'd forgotten how much evil or haunted house this played at the opening.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of this movie. Like, I'll talk about this now. Like, my favorite scene in a lot of movies, particularly, is the laughing scene. Like, and I'll tell you, distinctly my favorite creature effect of any time. One of my favorite special effects ever is the laughing deer's head. I have absolutely no idea why. Could not tell you.
Yeah.
It makes absolutely no sense. It's actually a very simple effect. That bit is so fucking funny to me, though. Because, quite frankly, like, it levels up it's not just about, like, absurdity. Like, the terror of knowing, like, you're not insane. Like, that's, I think, the really important thing about this. And that's the thing that I think is more entertaining and more terrifying also about Evil Dead 2 is that Ash is not going insane. These things are actually happening to him. So he has to sit there and address that by thinking he's going insane. And that's what this, like, the whole laughing scene and that fucking dumb deer's head, which is hilarious.
Well, that scene is great because essentially you get this Beauty and the Beast. The whole laughing
scene is about addressing the absurdity.
Yeah, you get this Beauty and the Beast moment, right? Where, all the, books and everything's alive and laughing with them. But it's actually, it's wild because it is laughing, but then it ends in a barbaric howl, right?
Yes.
Him just, he's kind of losing his mind, right? Almost like on the verge of tears. And the reason it ends is because that's when the actual people bang on the door and interrupt this game, right? And in that moment, it is strange because it is Ash and the demonic spirits somewhat both acknowledging the arbitrary nature of what's happening. Hey, you just showed up at a place you didn't rent to bang. And, we were floating around the woods and you press play, so I guess now we're adversaries. And it's almost they both are just laughing at the fucking absurd nature of this, right?
Yeah.
And it's a really odd moment, but again, once he starts, like, you can tell he's laughing, and then it breaks into that, oh my fucking God, he's about to all the way be done.
Right.
I think that's really awesome. It's really cool. And then it sets up when the four new normals walk in. Well, normals. When the four normies walk in, then you begin to question how much of any of this has actually occurred, right? So there's a little window there, too, where we are resetting our POV.
Right. Which by the way, I have to admit this. I'm so glad we watched these movies and rewatch movies like this because I'll fully cop to the fact that I had completely forgotten that the other two, that couple, the hillbilly couple, was in the actual movie.
The fact I had forgotten that was potentially his lover, because she looks like every good-looking college girl in a 80s horror movie, and how the fuck those two started dating, that should have been its own movie. They gave her the nice Canadian tuxedo to be like, yeah, that explains it. That's why she's got a guy with those teeth and that hair and those overalls, that amount of sweat. Of course she would be with him. And you're like,
that's one of those things where you're like, oh, of course that all checks out. Like, there's just so much about that still doesn't add up to me. But again,
the truest moment in the film is when that guy's like, Bobby Joe, and he's like, we got to go out in the woods and confront hell, an alternate universe undead, because that is my peak. That is the highest I will climb on the fuck charts. Right? So he's just like, get out there, I'll kill everyone to get one more whap. Like, that absolutely checks out and makes sense in this movie.
Yeah, like, I really do appreciate that everybody does sort of stick to their guns as far as things that they absolutely are capable of. That is really entertaining also about this movie, is like, and it's weird because I think maybe it's because Bruce Campbell looks the way he does, but everything Bruce Campbell does in this movie, any other actor, like, imagine like any other handsome, decent-looking actor from the time doing the bits he does, but because he has that face, because he has that kind of like sort of just like slapsticky quality to the way he operates, everyone else would look like a fucking idiot. You wouldn't buy it for a second. But because Bruce Campbell is Bruce Campbell, he sells the fact that not only is Ash not crazy, Ash is literally having to address what's happening in the world. Like his reactions to everything. Like, he has to be completely reactionary on a regular basis throughout the movie. And that, to me, is one of those things that can get really tedious and terrible in these kinds of movies. Because we've seen, this whole month we've seen occasionally people that are just like literally reacting every 5 minutes to things that are happening to them. What I love about this movie is that Ash is reacting to things that are happening to him, and all of them feel like, man, of course he's not going to know what to do, because it can come from any direction. And that's something we talked about yesterday, which is just like, you never know. That's the real fear of the Evil Dead, so to speak, is that it is just like a mist in the woods. It is just this unseen force that pushes you and tries to drown you in a puddle before daybreak. Like, it's these kinds of things that make the movie still scary.
Yeah.
While sort of all these other influences of comedy coming into the movie that shouldn't work in a regular horror movie at all. Yeah. But because of the camera angles, because of the camera work, and because of the way that Bruce Campbell not only acts, but also the way Ash is written in general, everything feels authentic when a lot of it shouldn't at all. And that's, to me, like, probably the most impressive.
Well, then they have that break too, right? Yeah, so, yeah, I agree with all that. And once they have that break, right, once we snap into the others are here, they're going to throw him in the basement, right? They throw him in, they play the tape. Now we've restarted their story. Mommy's in the basement. There's a great moment when Ash looks like he's running away, right? Like, of course you would. He's like, this isn't my movie anymore. There's 4 new fuckers here. They press the tape. I'm getting the fuck out of here. And they add that really cool new element to the plot, too, which kind of supports a pocket multiverse thing, too, which is, Cletus or whatever his name is. That trail we done came in on ain't there no more. So you get this sense of there was no escape anyways, right? This is the absurd game we've been led to believe. So Ash, they think he's running away. When he comes back with the axe, I think that's when the movie resets him, right? And now he has become, he is working on his John McClane moment, right? This is, I am the normal man who now is going to be this creature of action, right? Just goes straight into attacking. Let's lock Mama in the basement. Just fucking axe murders that lady's boyfriend in front of him. And next thing you know, I'm cutting off chainsaws. I'm getting a chainsaw hand. I'm going to, get a sawed off. Here I am. And then by the end of the movie, every time he sees the demon, he's like, you want some? Let's get some, right? Now he's doing catchphrases. So Ash was broken all the way to the point and realizes, I'm not getting out of here. So it's just, all right, if this is what we're doing, let's do it. It's a really fun way to transition who was kind of just a background character for a vast portion of the first movie into this really strange comedic backdoor leading man.
Yes, I think that's probably the thing that is most prevalent in the movie. Just in general, like the backdoorness of the abilities that, like, I shouldn't be as, I don't know how to put this correctly, but I shouldn't be as hyped or as interested like my interest in Ash was like almost non-existent in the first movie. It only happens around like the 45-minute mark when things actually start to happen. Then you have to, like, the audience automatically assigns themselves to Ash. This time the charisma really shines through, and that's what, and again, even when other characters show up, he still has that great, like, machismo? I don't know if that's the word for it, but like there is just that sort of like, there is this sort of, and it's funny because like Army of Darkness, which we'll talk about tomorrow, is just like cranked to 1,000. Like this, like you sort of see the beginnings of this, but as soon as it's like as soon as he saws his hand off, it's weird. It's like Ash sawing his hand off is almost like this moment of, this is like the last vestige of like the really weenie Ash that everyone saw in the first movie. And now that's like the version of him that's becoming proactive rather than reactive. Is like, I'm going to saw my hand off. This woman's going to help me achieve this awesomeness with a fucking chainsaw hand. And that's like, that's the new character that we get for the rest of the movie, which is fucking great. Like, that's the thing that I think is most entertaining beyond anything else, is that like that shift in Ash is what makes Evil Dead 2 work past what I would say is a lot for mostly is just like sort of a one-hander for a long time. Pun intended.
Well played.
For a long time. Because to be honest with you, like everything involving the historian's daughter and the hillbilly, I think their boyfriend and girlfriend. I honestly, the first time, again, I fully forgot they were in the movie, and I swear to God, the first time they appear on screen, I'm like, brother and sister. Nope, never mind. I'm wrong. Forget it.
Yeah. But I think that's the fun thing about this one is you start with Bruce and you get to redo your stuff you wanted to from part one. Mm-hmm. You're setting up this new tone and flavor. What's really funny is when they bring in the other group, it becomes this really strange movie where the first one was a group of friends all going to do this thing, right? This one, it feels like Bruce and Ash and the Deadites, right, are in one movie. And the other characters are still people who have not been broken down, right? Had their Pixar lamp moment. Right. And they're still, like, they haven't been baptized in the blood yet. So they all still are sitting there somehow assuming they're in the real world. Where Ash in the second half of this movie, it's him and the Deadites are in an Evil Dead movie. And the other characters still think there's like a way out, right? So it's almost like a Roger Rabbit thing where the archaeologist's daughter becomes Bob Hoskins in a weird way, right? And then there's just Roger Rabbit and the judge fighting it out in the background, right? Because there's that scene that just really illustrated that to me, which is where we need those pages from the basement. Cool. And he just goes down on his own, whips the fucking pages up to her to do narrative stuff. And now he's just fighting Mama in the basement, right? The blood-soaked basement. They're just having a throwdown. And you're like, that's the thing, right? That's the Toontown part, right? They're trying to dunk each other in the vat of ooze while she's upstairs reading pages, right? And getting stabbed or whatever. But it's like, that's he's in a completely different place, right? And if his mental state wasn't enough, once he starts putting chainsaws on his hand and shit, you just know it's like he is now officially part of that world, right? And they even illustrate that in the Book of the Dead when we see the very strange foreshadowed part, right? That there was a chosen one who fell from the sky and defeated this evil all those years ago. And it's this weird little drop in, right? That, if you know what's coming, it's, oh, look at that. But it's actually a really weird thing that they added in the middle of this movie. And it's strange to think that they wanted this movie to end in Army of Darkness. Like, that's one of those weird things that happened in movie history that I'll never suss out. But it reaffirms this character direction, right? And it gives them carte blanche to just really fucking go for it in a way you can't.
Yeah. I think it's fascinating that, the history of this like series of movies is because like Army of Darkness was the sequel. That was what was supposed to follow up. Like literally that was Sam Raimi's next pitch is like, yeah, I don't know. Ash goes through a time portal and ends up having to kill Deadites in like 1300 AD. And everyone's like, actually, I was reading online. Apparently someone put an ad. It might have been the publicist. Yeah, it was his publicist. Actually went as far as putting an ad out in 1884 that said Evil Dead 2, Evil Dead and the Army of Darkness, which of course never happened. Universal and 20th Century Fox actually passed on it. So then like they had to but then they had promoted this movie that eventually happened but wasn't going to happen and definitely wasn't going to address an Evil Dead 2. So it's awesome though that this is the movie that leads you there. So Sam Raimi knew how he needed to get there. And he knew the kind of movie he already wanted to make in regards to that. So it makes actually total sense, given what we know about Army of Darkness and how that movie is, that Evil Dead 2 sort of starts to take a left turn into slapstick comedy, doing some of that stuff with like a horror tinge, because this is where Sam Raimi eventually wanted to land. What I like about the new people that get introduced, like like Annie and Jake and those guys, is that, and Bobby Joe, of course.
Bobby Joe.
What I like about that, though, and you said it best, like, it does feel like they're in different movies. But what I think is happening is actually Ash is in an Evil Dead movie, but Annie, Jake, and Bobby Joe are actually viewers of an Evil Dead movie who just so happen to be transported into the film in the middle of it. And they're like, oh, I came
Bobby
to see
Joe
Prince of Tides. That's my fault.
One hand in the popcorn, one hand in those overalls in the dark. Yeah. The next thing you know, they're like, "What the hell?"
It's sort of like for those of you who grew up in the early 2000s, sort of like that music video for Movies by Alien Ant Farm. Like they get thrown into the movie. Yeah, that's a deep cut. You're welcome, friends.
Wow. Yeah.
You're welcome.
Cool. But now we're on the record as Alien Ant Farm guys. No.
But that's like kind of what it is, though. It's like they get dropped in the middle of it, and they're like, "Wait, oh." So for them, it's an actual horror movie. They're like literally intervening in the movie that we were watching, which is almost like it's nearly a comedy, and then the new people that get introduced immediately turn it back into a horror movie, which I think is the thing that's most fascinating about the way it's written and about introducing these characters to Ash so late in the game, because. You know, how many times have we watched movies? How many times have we talked about like writing theory, so to speak, where introducing a character so late in a fucking story is just like, why would you ever do that? It's like, you're just like, I'm like, are you doing this to like fix something that you fucked up earlier? And you totally would. But in this movie, what it is about redirecting everything back to a horror movie so that everyone is prepared for Army of Darkness, because that is, in my opinion, not a horror movie. And we'll get to that tomorrow. But either way, like, that is what I like the most, is that we are essentially these three people that fucking land in the middle of Ash's nightmare, and we get to experience it firsthand.
They somewhat show that too by Ash being actually connected to the Evil Dead. Yes. It's not a big part of part one, and it disappears by part two for the most part. Or, I mean, Army of Darkness for the most part. Right. But what's really cool is there's that scene when Ash is like aware Deadite. He turns back in, and everyone's like, ah. And every Deadite we've seen gets fucking murdered, right? They get chopped up, and they're done. They melt, demon hands, whatever their fate is. It's almost never good, right? Chainsawed in a vice. So Ash comes back in. He essentially kills the overall guy, right? Dale, whatever his name is. I can't fucking remember his name. So he kills that guy.
Jake. I believe it's Jake.
Yeah. His hand is there. The knife's there. Or no, she fucking murders him because Ash is assaulting them.
Annie accidentally kills Jake thinking that he's Ash.
Yeah. So Ash comes in, and he's throwing Annie about the room, right? He's a full Deadite now.
Yeah.
They give us this link back to the iconic Ash and Linda scene from part 1, right? An actual looking glass, right? To reinforce this multiverse Wonderland thing. He sees that looking glass, and he's able to revert back to heroic Ash from the start of this movie, right?
Right.
And then that scene's really funny because now Linda's like, we're still in this movie. Or, what's her name? Still in this movie. And she tries to hit him with the axe. He's like, I'm all right. And he rests against the wall. She fucking tries to hit him again. He's like, God damn it. And it's a really good beat. But again, he is this man shifting between realities. And it's this really, it's a very clever way to play this out. Because to your point, right, if you're introducing characters really late into a film, it always feels, it's like a Chekhov's gun, right?
Yes.
Why is this person here? Like they have to serve some kind
Jeez.
of a big purpose. And I think you could argue in Evil Dead 2, they are literally just filler. Like the characters in Evil Dead 2 that aren't Ash serve absolutely no purpose. Everything that happens or that needs to happen to get us to Army of Darkness could have also been done by the tape player. Here's the incantation you need to defeat them. Blah, 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 blah. That could have happened, right? But so I wonder why he needed to bring them in. And I think maybe it's to establish the lostness of Ash.
Well, I mean, I think it's even going back. I mean, I would say the lostness of Ash is almost established towards the beginning, like when he's talking about the mirror, when he's talking to himself in the mirror, and the mirror self literally jumps. Is like, are you fucking serious? You just like cut up your girlfriend. You think you're okay? What is wrong with you? Like
that line from Ash is amazing, right? He reaches out and grabs himself, and he's, everything's not okay. You just cut your girlfriend up with a chainsaw. It is kind of that's the precipitating moment to him just realizing, like, oh fuck, like I'm a cartoon now.
This whole thing's not right. Yeah, like I fucking howled watching that scene simply because he's like, actually I have it pulled up. It's like I wrote it down. The scene is, I'm fine. I don't think so. We just cut up our girlfriend with a chainsaw. Does that sound fine? Like that's the kind of shit that you're like, huh? And again, it's like what shakes you loose back into being a horror movie. And it's like the whole movie is like this. That scene is, to me, like the microcosm of the movie, which is like, it's fine. It's just a comedy. And it's like, you fucking serious? There's dead people walking around.
It's very Joss Whedon, right? Like, you can tell the way he started doing his sci-fi and all that is very much how Raimi was doing this horror series, right? Which is, he did the first one and made a true scary film, right? And you could tell it has a little tongue-in-cheek. This one, he expands the style, and through the style, he finds these moments for laughs. Again, I think there was like a scene when Ash is fighting through the house, and he decides he's going to sit down in a chair. And even the chair breaks, right? The chair just breaks under him when he wants to sit for like a moment. And I was like, this is getting so fucking Looney Tunes. Like, why does that chair need to break? But then it reminds me that it needs to separate him out from humanity, right? I think even the fact that his hand is the one that stabs Annie in the back to try to prevent her from stopping this nightmare is an interesting visual cue, right? Everything he goes through is reminding us. It's like, the anti-Space Jam. You don't get to come back and suck at baseball at the end of the movie. Like, it's over for you. Right. You're stuck here forever. If Michael Jordan had just ended with those people, right? If it was just Michael and Bugs and Daffy and, Tweety Birds kissing him, he would have gotten a chainsaw hand too and murdered all of the Looney Tunes we love, right? That's what Evil Dead is in a way.
Very different Space Jam.
Yeah, because that's the thing, right? There's no real horror for Ash anymore. We've already seen this whole movie. If it's just him there, I kept thinking the same thing as you. Like, why is he even trying to survive? This is all theater of the mind. This is, you will never be comfortable again. You will never have a second again where you do not have the question of what is coming at me next. And it's really a smart move, because if you just redo and rehash the gore and the horror of the first one, it will wear off. So this one says, we'll give you way more blood, right? Literal truckfuls of blood.
Yeah.
And we're just going to, every single scene is going to show Ash not being able to rest. A dish, the mirror, the stuffed animal who's already dead is still a threat. In this one, we get the weird tree scene. Even the trees have faces now. Everything becomes anthropomorphized to let you know he will never again rest, right? Yeah. And that is a psychological horror. Well, because we still see the normal cast going through the normal horrors, right? My girlfriend who is way hotter than me and I should never have hooked up with, right? That's probably like a Black Widow scenario we jumped in on. Like, she was probably going to, take his money.
He's probably the son of a rich man. She's just bleeding him dry.
Yeah, he was going to become a prom dress if they didn't get sucked into this cabin universe. But, so that's a horror scene, right? My girlfriend's been kidnapped. Her mom singing the lullaby to her is a fantastic horror beat. This innocent little woman who you're like, she could crawl right out from that basement, but she doesn't. And she just sings a song, right? The song she sang to as her baby. And she has to confront, that's not my mom here. So the other characters have truly horrifying beats. Ash's isn't. So it becomes this accumulation of what seem like gags, but it's really just this little scratching your mind so that you feel almost like a junkie, right? Like when you're watching Ash, it's almost like watching a junkie go through withdrawals.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing he's withdrawing from is normal reality.
Yeah, I think that's the thing that's most... the rest line is probably the best way to put this, because this movie is, to me, it is very exhausting in a lot of ways. There's a lot of aspects of this movie that you're just like, oh my... honestly, by the end of the first minute of the plate smashing thing is always the thing I come back to, is I'm like, I can't believe I'm still watching Bruce Campbell smash plates over his head. This should not be working still. Mm-hmm. And yet I'm still fully engaged because it's relentless. Yeah. This movie is relentless, and particularly Ash's journey through this movie is the thing that is the most relentless of all. And it is fascinating when these people show up, because his manic then is actually counterbalanced. You're like, oh, he's actually not okay. There's a lot of shit going on here that's not great. Yeah. And that, I think, is the more entertaining aspect of that, is other people reacting to Ash is how we should be reacting to Ash. And I think that's what I like, is that, again, we're being regrounded by these characters that are coming in the middle and be like, what the fuck's going on over here?
Yeah, right.
Because they get to be the audience for us, and we're like, oh, finally, someone's addressing the fact that fucking giant deer head laughed for 10 minutes. Yeah. It's weird.
Well, also, we see Ash when he goes deadite. That should be his moment of relief. Now he is this undead berserker. They even pull him back from fucking that. He literally cannot catch a fucking break. And one of the more telling scenes, right, is when the evil is given flesh. And that little, Freddy Krueger fetus face pushes through the door. Ugh. Ash just, in his hair, he gets a rogue streak. And I was like, yeah, no shit, this is stressful as fuck. It's horrible, right? And then the girl's reading as she's dying. By the end of the film, everyone is dead. They totally cleaned house. Everyone is dead.
Actually,
and helpless Ash just gets pulled back into a portal.
That actually, to me, it's funny. I was watching it, and my wife came down in the middle of it, and she's like, what are you watching? I'm like, Evil Dead 2. And she'd never seen the ending of the movie. And she watched, she goes, wow. And it's funny we're talking about this, because I thought about it then. I was like, that might be the most relieving part of Ash's entire journey, is that finally, some relief. I get pulled back into God knows where, but I don't have to fucking fight anybody right now. That
I disagree.
Is the crazy thing. Oh, really? I think that's I think that's the least stressful thing that happens to him.
Well, see, I would imagine that Ash, with every plate, with every battle, he's just like, please fucking kill me. Because it's one of those weird things where the Deadites just whoop the shit out of everyone. But for some reason, like, Ash is throwing Knuckles with, like, you know, the big bloated mama. Like, she's just whooping ass. But when Ash comes over, they're actually, like, going rounds, like, really throwing punches, right? And you're like, oh, that's funny. Ash is here. But you're like, why? Oh, because they cannot kill him. He must suffer and be miserable as fuck. And it's the great image, too, because they end at the end and everyone's like, you know, let's burn this whatever. And he's like, oh, thank God, please fucking kill me. But no, he reacts without thinking, shoots a fucking Deadite, right? And next thing you know, everyone's chanting his name and he's just, you know, hail, hail. I think it's actually Sam Raimi plays like the townie. The night townie is like, hail, he who fell from the hail.
Really? That's him?
I think that's Sam Raimi who starts the chant. And then Bruce Campbell as Ash just going, no, no. So what was this heroic image in the Book of the Dead, right? Which, why is Ash in the Book of the Dead, right? That should tell you another little secret. He just screams in horror, and it's this very Twilight Zone entrance, which is like, I did everything. I fought hard. I banished the evil. In this movie, they really say is essentially not his fault at all, right? Except for that you shouldn't have been trying to fuck in a cabin you didn't pay for. You know, do a little Yelp reviewing on, whatever. But it is just this man who's like...
You got to get on that Airbnb,
yeah,
man.
now I'm stuck in a time with no bidets.
No running water. No
Chipotles, no... Starbucks. I'm just trying to say all the things that people make fun of me when they say I have a Prius. All the
no
things
S-Marts.
Yeah, like, you know, I guess I'm not going to a hospital to get this stump looked at. Like, I'm here. This is it now. Now I just live in a dusty, shittier place. And I'm just going to keep fighting these fucking people forever. And there is a classic Twilight Zone-ness to that ending. Because, again, how they went from let's time travel back to this ancient medieval time is such a wild leap of logic, right? It's kind of funny. Yes. I was thinking about this too because my wife was, we just finished Lovecraft Country,
right?
And she's like, I don't know how people come up with those monsters and blah blah. I'm like, the monsters are pretty easy, I think, right?
Oh, yeah.
It's pretty easy to find that image. What is really hard is to sell the emotions of those characters as they're being attacked by, you know, fucking pussy dick monsters. That's what separates really good stuff from that. And the strangest 100%. Thing is that Sam Raimi went so hard on style that now we've seen his style has infected filmmakers beyond him everywhere. You can see that Sam Raimi style has infused everywhere, right? Way more influential than he gets credit for. And we do what on the surface looks like a Looney Tune parody of Evil Dead. But I think that when you really hone in, he finds those moments that separate, you know, this movie from... There is a whole genre of not great horror comedies, right? Why are Evil Dead and Shaun of the Dead and things like that much better? Tucker and Dale versus Evil, a couple of them. Is because they find those fucking moments. I think that's always the separator with horror, and it's infinitely more important to me in a horror comedy, right? And I think it's actually kind of the overlooked thing, is I always remember it as the Looney Tune movie until you get to Army of Darkness, but there's a lot of really good psychological horror, and there's some pretty solid human wreckage moments.
Yes. I mean, I think that's all you can ask from this kind of movie is someone who... It's interesting. Sam Raimi being familiar with his own material well enough to know how to walk a tightrope that I think in the hands of anybody else who didn't make the first one would have just fallen by the wayside. We would have never gotten Army of Darkness. We would have never gotten anything like that. But because someone understands what they're trying to do and understands that first and foremost what they're trying to make is just a great movie, you can blend these genres in a way that isn't going to cause a big kerfuffle because, like, I personally think, like, comedy and horror are relatively similar genres. They
and also,
hold a lot of the
I
same
hate that
tenets
people
and
just
hold a lot
call
of the
them
same
genres,
aspects.
right? Like every movie should be dramatic and have some comedy and be horrifying and stuff. Like I hate that. That's like never mind. That's
every
not a
movie should have the same. Every movie. Well, I mean, we're sitting here doing all horror movies in 1 month, so we're guilty of it too.
We're part of the problem, man. We're stuck in
part
the
of the problem. But I mean, to me, it takes a very specific accent to make a movie like this. And if you don't understand what you're trying to accomplish, which is not necessarily get to Army of Darkness, but get a movie out of this that is uniquely terrifying and also making people laugh. I mean,
right.
I don't know, like, you know, I usually, my reaction when I'm scared is laughing a lot. So I think that's the thing that I like the most is this movie is.
That's like a serial killer thing? That's weird.
Well, you know.
Mine is I just start throwing punches into the darkness. And maybe a couple of roundhouse kicks, you know.
Yeah.
Kickboxer
that's been
style.
Clearly very successful for you. So, you know, it's fine.
I mean, I'm still here. I'm still fun.
I mean, look, I'm the kind of guy who
cabin. Are you my Linda for real? Was that joke?
The last time I'm definitely your Linda. The last time I was at a haunted house, I got yelled at by the staff for like laughing at things. So, you know, that's one of those things.
Strange.
But that's what's so great about Evil Dead 2 is that it's allowing you to laugh and then almost immediately pulls the rug out from under you like, hey, by the way, this is still a horror movie and here's something to scare the fucking shit out of you.
I think the genius of what he accomplished before we get out of here is, to me, when I think of Evil Dead, I think of Evil Dead in 1 and 2 as two different movies, right? There's like the kind of comedy one and the real horror one.
Mm-hmm.
What is funny on a rewatch is how much they are conjoined to me, right? Very much like Evil Dead 2 is the kind of single man retelling into the new retelling. The two movies are spun, right? The chaotic energy of Evil Dead 2, I have imprinted on my mind to make Evil Dead 1 more than it was. I think it's more frenetic. I think it has more funny beats. It has more style, this and that. In the same way that because I saw Evil Dead 1 and it's, you know, a great low-budget punk rock horror movie, I have taken some of those things that I found scarier in part 1 and transfused that horror onto scenes that are a little bigger and stylized and play to a different effect in Evil Dead 2. And it's such a brilliant way to do a sequel, which is they both are so different and seemingly disparate in ways, but yet they really mold into one really cool experience, right? They borrow and lend energy betwixt each other in a really incredible way, and that is absolute brilliance, right? What he does at the start of Evil Dead 2 is, here's you, the fan, right? You love Evil Dead so much, you want to do that again? This is what it looks like. This is how silly that thought is, right? This cartoonish psychological assault, right? That's a really clever way to do this movie. And then he just blows the doors out, and we get Army of Darkness, which is its own, again, uniquely wild and different thing. And I think that's the legacy of why Evil Dead stands out and became more a cult classic than almost any other of the horror franchises of its time, is because by the time you're on Friday the 13th, part 4, you're like, I've seen Jason do the Jason thing. I pretty much know how these go. Evil Dead 2 will just fucking throw it all out and reinvent. And that ability to not be beholden to an audience and just really do what you want and put your love and passion up there is fucking wild, man. I can't believe he pulled it off sometimes.
It's amazing. It's wonderful. We're lucky that we get to watch it.
We really are. I fucking love Evil Dead 2. I hope you guys did too. I hope you'll join us tomorrow for Army of Darkness. I think you're going to assume that we'll be meaner to it than we are, but I fucking love Army of Darkness.
Oh, man. This is my favorite one. I actually have an amazing... we'll get to it. I love this movie.
I love Army of Darkness, too. That's it, guys. Again, a horror movie every single day this month on our sojourn into the abyss. We're coming close to the end, man. I'm proud of us. I'm tired. I'm really kind of sad it's almost over, man. I'm going to get a little teary-eyed when we stop that Evil Dead remake recording. But it's thanks to you guys that we were able to do this. A little more help, we must always ask. Like Ash, we're stuck in the asking for help business. please take a second, leave us a rating and review wherever you find the show, especially Apple Podcasts. It only takes but a minute. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Nerd Alchemist. Please take a moment, find us on your social media, shout us out, retweet, shares, all that good stuff to let your friends know that you're having fun with us and that they should do the same. You can email us, filmalchemistpod@gmail.com, with your idea. Maybe you want to already start filling the list up for next October. Whatever you guys want to hear us talk about, we want to watch. So get at us, socials, emails, wherever. And as always, just thanks for all the time, guys. For the Film Alchemist, I'm Josh Griffey.
I'm Alex Dandino.